Okay, I paused for an uncomfortable few minutes as I was instructed to. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to see you all here. I see some friends in the audience, and I know it's snowing in Colorado. Yikes! I'm in Boston, and it's a gorgeous seasonal 70 degrees today, for whatever reason. So. I am delighted that you have joined us today, whatever time of day it is where you are. And I'm just, I should tell you, I am Ann Hadley. I am Chief Content Officer here at MarketingProfs, and I am beyond honored to bring to you today's webinar, which is called, as you see on your screen, the top email deliverability tips you should not follow and what you can do instead. It is produced by MarketingProfs and sponsored by our very good friends at Ortto. So before we begin and before I introduce our speaker today, I wanted to give you a few updates and a few quick housekeeping notes. If you experience any audio or visual problems today on your screen, please try to refresh the page or log out and pop back in. If you're on Wi-Fi or have multiple applications open this afternoon, this morning, tonight, wherever you are, it could impact your viewing experience. So when in doubt, close it out. Check out the right-hand side panel for some fun engagement options. Use the chat, as you're doing now, many of you, to connect with each other. You can hit reply. You can send reactions to other comments by if you hover over them. Please use the Q&A tab to submit questions today for our speaker. We will get to as many as we can at the end. You can also upvote your favorite question, so check it out as we go along today. And yes, there is a PDF of the deck available. It is always the number one question. Can I get the slides? Yes, you can. It is available to download in the resources tab. And finally, if you look to the bottom of your screen, you will see an emoji button. And right there is where you share your reactions. I see some hearts coming in. You guys, oh my gosh, you're the best. I'm giving it to you right back. All right, and with that, I want to take a minute and thank Ortto for sponsoring today's webinar. Ortto, if you don't know the fine folks there, what they do is they get your customer data, marketing automation, and analytics all working wonderfully and seamlessly together in a platform that is strengthened by AI. With Ordo, you can execute data-driven marketing campaigns with like that. It's just easy as pie. Now, finally, please join me in welcoming the one, the only, Travis Hazlewood, who is presenting about your top email deliverability tips, what to do, what not to do. Travis is the head of email deliverability at Ortto throughout his career. Travis has worked hand in hand with marketers to overcome major deliverability challenges, from global platform reliability to one-off spam filtering issues for senders like you and me. And oh my Lord, I am sorry that took me so long, but it was important to get through. And with that, Travis, I am going to just hand it over to you to go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Ann. That was a great intro. Got to get all through the technical stuff. Hi, everyone. I'm Travis, as she said, and we're going to talk about an interesting perspective on what you shouldn't do in deliverability, because there are a lot of things that are actually advice given out that is wrong. And so I thought that would be a really cool angle to approach with some of this. Um, so quickly, what we're going to do today, we're going to cover a quick intro with me, a little bit more details on my background and my history with helping people solve deliverability issues. We're going to move on to those deliverability myths. I think I've got about 12 deliverability myths that I'm going to help bust and give better advice around. From there, I'm going to talk about the top 6 mistakes that I see related to deliverability that a lot of marketers make by accident. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about the real deal, the real sort of foundational pieces that you need to know. There's going to be, as I said, at least like 18 different things I'm going to talk about that are wrong, or things that are common to do wrong. But these few real deal elements and advice will actually help solve hundreds of problems that could happen if you miss these few things. So I think it's going to be really informative. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure to leave time at the end to cover the Q&A, so we can really get into the nitty gritty on your situations or your unique questions you may have. So onto my background here, I have experience working with a wide range of company types, including especially the B2B senders, onto highly regulated industries like fintech that can have some of the most hurdles with email deliverability experiences. I've done that across four different platforms at this point, helping senders that have sends and audiences of from sizes of 10,000 up to like 10 million or more in a day, and I've helped them regularly try to earn the inbox like they should. I've written a short deliverability ebook that we have on the Ordo website, but I also write a monthly blog that really covers both general topics as well as more and more niche topics in deliverability. And I am a personal note veteran reader, and I jokingly call myself an amateur juggler. In situations where I start to juggle, you might be impressed for the first couple seconds before you're running in fright from all of the things that are now out of my control. So, a little bit about me, and I think we can now kind of move on to some of the things that I have helped and seen customers go through. So, I've seen things like customers who have gone a long, long time, maybe even a year without sending, and then try to send to like over 100,000 now cold subscribers all at once. Boy, was that a journey to try to work through. I've helped people who didn't realize what they were doing with IP ramping and accidentally focused on the wrong thing, which is to send unsolicited emails during that's bad enough on its own, and then doing it during a ramp up or a warm up of an IP is extra fun disaster there. I've actually helped marketing team before with a major ISP, regional ISP, as they had issues with another one getting into the inbox, and so that was a very interesting and sort of ironic experience, but it was fun to do. I've seen senders who regularly tried to domain hop because they just thought that was the way that you had to deal with deliverability issues, and then of course one of the biggest ones I'd seen was a rebrand that went wrong when a company tried to switch from brand A to brand B, and they were changing complete domains as well, and had a perfect storm of bad decisions occur both through their marketing traffic and through their internal teams mailboxes, causing things to get so bad that their normal one-to-one traffic was getting marked as phishing or alerted as phishing, and that was such a fun journey to help restore. It was fun on the back end once we got through it. Of course, it wasn't fun at first, but I was able to help that one especially restore the reputation very quickly. And within a month, using the various features within Ordo, we were able to get them back on track, as well as with some other internal education to stop that from happening in the future. And now they're doing great. The new brand looks great. Last that I've seen, they've have fantastic results. And this has been a lot of just examples of the journeys that I've been a part of with customers. So let's dive into some of the myths, shall we? Like I said, I have about 12 myths here. And so starting out, let's hit the ground running with the first most common myth that I see talked about all the time, still to this day, which is the spam words myth. The fact or the idea that words like free or sale or scheduled call are all promotional or salesy, and they will automatically catch you into the spam filter. Now, this is a legacy thing. This was true during, more than 10 years ago, really, in the deliverability world as one of the few tools available. Um, it's very easy to see plenty of use cases where that would be an improper thing to trigger spam filter. And so things have grown and changed. And now the truth is that spam, there aren't really spam words. There are just spam practices. The algorithms now are focusing more and more on sort of subscriber engagement and the sort of algorithmic and like overall aggregate reputation that can be built from that. And so they don't have to build these really easily false positive algorithms that are just looking for little things like words, which could be used for anything. Now it's much more complex, but it's much more reliable compared to that. So that's a good one. Another is that idea, like I just mentioned before. I've seen senders believe this as well, that once you're in the spam folder, that domain, that IP is ruined. If it's blacklisted as well, there's just this idea that you have to abandon ship and move on and do with a new setup. But the truth is that that doesn't solve anything, because that just prolongs the issue. It's more expensive. You have to go through a ramp up process, and then you're just going to do it again because whatever you did before is going to cause it again. And so, ideally, your strategy and why that happened in the first place is what needs to be changed in such situations. Now, this is a fun one. There's been conversations. You'll see that all the time. They're like, "What can I do with my content that might be causing me to go to the spam folder?" And you'll see, "Remove the images. Only do a plain text, or watch out for those emojis." And the truth is that now most of the mailbox providers are very used to these elements. These are becoming very normal, very common. And outside of the very unique situations of niche, high security mailbox providers or mailbox setups, like say like governmental mailboxes or bank mailboxes, those can have higher security, that can have stricter content. A lot of the times they just block the images rather than block the full email. But outside of that, or poor reputation, at the end of the day, you could do all sorts of different things, but the poor reputation is really going to cause the most common filtering. In reality, all other situations, you're going to be able to use images to your heart's content, as long as it's very organic with the user experience, as well as emojis, without it affecting your inbox placement. A fun myth I like to talk about is the one that comes up multiple times a year, really, but every year, and that is that email is dying this year, or it is dead. So it's time to move on and move to these other channels like social media, SMS, push, all of that. And it is important to include all of those other channels in your marketing streams, because anything that can be worked well in communicating with your customer base is ideal. But the truth is that email is very foundational, and it's not really going anywhere. It's a part of an era of technology that probably is nothing else is going to reflect the ability and the fluidity and the opportunity that it provides for connection, while also creating a distance enough, in its place in our culture, especially giving it such a sort of permanent place here. It's just, email is proving again and again to be something different than any new technology, a new channel has been able to show itself for. And so it is going to be around for a long time. It is going to continue to prove its worth in the marketing channels. This right here is another fun one that I love to talk about. Is I understand the ideas of trying to figure out ways around some things, and kudos for and credit for trying to be ingenuity there. But the truth is that trying to send in small batches, trying to do little tricks like break things up so that it looks less like a bulk send and more like a normal human engaging, it's not enough to really trick the algorithms. Like I said, a lot of the algorithms are being built around subscriber engagement and how they're interacting. And there's even things now called what we call fingerprinting in the industry, where the machines, the security machines, the spam filters and such, are building associations. They see patterns with your content. And regardless of whether you're sending, a 10,000 or you're sending them in batches of 100, they still see that that is a trending, like repetitive thing that is associated with your traffic, associated with your domain, your IP. And from there, they make those spam filtering decisions regardless of whether you're sending a lot at once or not. So it's an unnecessary taxing thing for yourself that's not really giving any benefit. Another misleading one is this idea that you need a warming service in order to consistently reach the inbox. This is something that has grown, and I can understand where it came from. It comes from the sort of unsolicited cold email sphere of the email channels, and all of those platforms and stuff. But the truth is that those warming services are just a poor attempt at trying to bridge the gap that non-permission sending uh, gives them. And if they had followed through with permission sending, then you actually build your own warming service, if you want to call it. You create your own warming experience and reputation experience by following best practices, getting consent, and sending relevant content, so that your audience is regularly engaging and your reputation is strong and very warm. So that's another myth that I definitely love to expose. A fun one that especially got popularity for a second, more recently, was this idea about custom codes. Now, there was a big thing that came up about Gmail supposedly blocking emails or spam filtering emails with images, like I mentioned before. But one of the vendors that really promoted this, which was really a misconception and a misrepresentation of the situation, was one that had a custom code that they could sell with their service to give you a different way to know when an email is being opened. The truth is that custom code can actually cause you weird deliverability problems. I'm not talking about like dynamic code or customizing, settings. I'm talking about new custom coding that is not familiar, that is an attempt to hide things or break things or change things from how HTML is supposed to work, CSS is supposed to work, or how it's represented. These kind of things are some factors that are looked for to do the opposite, put you in the spam folder because they look risky, they look suspicious. So it's definitely a good idea to avoid strange, unique code experiences that are trying to be infused into the email sphere, at least until it is proven to follow the right dynamics of the coding mechanisms and shows itself to not be some suspicious thing. Now, this one is a huge one that a lot of people talk about is that open rates should be abandoned now, and some even go so far as to say that for click rates instead. But the reality is that the even though yes, there is an increase that and the various other privacy services have made open rates more and more inflated, more and more inorganic or unrealistic in what they represent. But they've always actually been that way. Apple just, their release was more popular and got more attention, but this has been going on for years, decades really. And the truth is too that the same thing has happened to clicks. For different services, there are machine clicks, there are proxies that try to generate and check on various attachments or links in messages. So the reality is that all metrics in email have an ability to be inflated and to have a lot of false positives, but that does not mean that we should not use them. Marketers have been using them still for years regardless of this to understand the direction of their traffic's responses and to understand and improve their efforts, because there is still some truth there and there is still something tangible to work with. And so I love busting this myth for people all the time. So this is a funny one to me, and it has caused some headaches sometimes when talking with vendors or senders who want to use this. But the idea that you can purchase opt-in lists, and so you get around the problem of, it's not unsolicited because, and it's legal because I am buying an opted-in list. But the deliverability algorithms, like I said, they're not checking, was there an opt-in, blah blah. They are checking for responses of these subscribers. And the problem with buying an opt in list is they didn't opt in with you. They have no clue that the difference between the person who purchased an opt in list that they put their address on versus some random vendor just deciding to spam them. And so again and again, I see these purchase opt in lists that should be fine turn out to be terrible for the sender. And that just again and again shows that you can never truly purchase an opt-in list. You have to get direct consent from the subscriber for your organization for the content they're receiving to earn those engagements you need to get that high reputation and the inboxing. Another similar one is the idea that if you provide an opt out, that it's not spam because they can just unsubscribe, and regardless of whether they actually opted in the first place. And I can kind of see that logic, but the truth is, if you really think about it, why would someone who has received unsolicited emails without their consent, without being checked with, believe that that same sender will honor their opt out? So it's not a very strong logic, and it definitely doesn't pay off. And once again, I have to remind people that you got to get direct opt in on the front end every time to maintain a truly healthy list. All right, and so the last two myths to bust here. Sending legally should get you in the inbox. Well, The sad truth is that a lot of the laws around spam and stuff, especially the US's law, are nowhere near strong enough to stop the spam. In fact, a lot of them even just make extra rules but allow you to spam as long as you follow these few extra rules. So the mailbox providers like Google and the rest are they have to have more intense expectations and restrictions because they're dealing with nuanced stuff. They're not just dealing with unsolicited emails or just a little too much marketing mail. They're dealing with bad actors, they're dealing with malware, they're doing all of this stuff, and it's trying to be hidden among each other. And so they have to do their best, and the best that they can do with this stuff is working now, but it requires a lot from us, and it is our duty now to meet those expectations. And finally, this concept gets a lot of people as well. Uh, the idea that if someone has opted in general to your company's traffic or content, that they're ready to receive everything and everything you can send their way is not spam. But like I said, the algorithms are more and more becoming bespoke. There are situations that grow into general bulk activities of going into the spam folder everywhere, but you are risking losing relevance with each individual subscriber earlier by not maintaining relevancy with each personalized experience. And so the idea of blanket opt-ins is becoming less and less of a true opt-in, at least considered on the mailbox provider side. And it's time that we start to get express or explicit consent on content types, whether you're sending newsletter, blog, coupons, weekly coupons, whatever. um, it's gonna Things are more and more going to require that degree of consent to make sure that you're getting the most engagements that will help you maintain your inboxing. Lots and lots of fun stuff there. Um, so let's move on to the deliverability mistakes real quick. So we got some six quick ones here. One of the common ones I see is changing platforms, but not really changing practices. There are shared elements on your different email sending platforms, but I know I work with a lot of peers in the industry that do my job at the other platforms. They're all working hard to maintain that reputation. And for the most part, they're able to do that. And so a lot of the senders that move because of deliverability issues turn out to actually have been the source of their own problem. So it's more important for you to take a closer look if you're having issues at your own send practices, your own sign up processes, and see if they align with the industry best practices. Now, if your platform can't help you see that very clearly or implement more structured and personalized experiences in order to meet those expectations, that would be a more realistic reason to move platforms. Another mistake I see is that when engagement rates start to drop, that senders will begin to send more out of desperation and fear because they're thinking like they're not seeing it, so I got to send more to make sure they see it. The problem is that that actually snowballs because you're sending less and less content that or more and more content that is getting less and less engagement, and that's more and more negative signals because a lack of open is a negative signal to a lot of these providers. And so that's really just making things worse. The truth is that when you start to have engagement rate issues or engagement rates dropping, you want to actually send a little less. You want to focus on the most ideal and engaged portion of your audience for a while. That will heal a lot of your reputation by giving you more and more strong signals and less negative signals. And in the end, that'll allow you to get better visibility with your future emails. The Sometimes senders believe that if they just stop and give things a break for a while, the issue will go away. But the truth is that that's not how it works. Mailbox providers are requiring more and more that the path to a fix is by doing things correctly and doing things in the right way as they expect. So don't just stop sending to try to wait for a cool off. It's more important to, once again, just like with the last slide, focus on the most recently engaged, most recently opted in, put your best foot forward by really sending relevant content and really review your lists and your content segmentation to make sure that you are earning their trust with your traffic. I also see most of the language you'll see online is around deliverabilities around blacklists or spam words. And a lot of senders believe if they're not on a blacklist and if they're not using spam words, then they're free of the spam filter ever catching them. or they just think that that's the one signal they got to watch for, is that their IP or domain is on a blacklist. But those services are not reliable in really catching things. More than likely, you're going to be in the spam folder well before you get a blacklisting, unless you're doing some very egregiously poor sending. So the more ideal solution here is to monitor and keep an eye on engagement stats on a regular basis to watch for trends that change. To piggyback on that as well, the idea of not checking engagement rates, because why would anything change if you haven't changed anything? You're doing the same sending to the same people and same content. Why would the metrics change? A lot of the deliverability issues I see are things that grew slowly over time and then had a tipping point where everything just suddenly changed without anything changing on the marketer side. And those situations could have been caught very early on if they would have identified it by paying attention to their weekly, if not daily metrics. So once again, it's an encouragement to check engagement rates. The final one on big mistakes is not building subscriber lifecycle automations. There are a lot. It's becoming more and more trendy to do welcome emails, but there are still senders who do not even do that, and so that isn't even all of it. We have all of these different ones: welcome, nurture, re-engagement, as well as sunset. That are all needed to give the personalized experience and meet subscribers where they are when they need to be adjusted, and before they really, like, their lack of engagement really begins to harm your reputation and your ability to reach the inbox for others. So that is a hugely pivotal mistake and thing that needs to be added to any martech stack of in the email channels especially. Now, I want to leave room for, you might see I'm kind of picking up pace here. I've got these foundational deliverability advice pieces I want to go over. I'm making sure that I leave room for a good amount of time for Q&A, because I know that you've got plenty of questions and I love to get to that. But here are the things that you need, regardless of, more than likely, any issue you're experiencing. If you have most of these, they should solve probably hundreds of deliverability issues that can come up. First, you're going to want to make sure that your technical setup is correct. You got to have all the authentication records in place, your SPF and your DKIM, and you want to make sure that your domain is protected by a DMARC record as well. There are providers requiring those now, so that while it doesn't guarantee inbox placement just to have those, it can guarantee spam foldering or blocking if you don't. So you want to make sure you have that. There are some free tools I mentioned here that's going to be available in the PDF. There are some industry experts have created these tools to help people make sure that they have everything they need with their email. From your technical setup, then you want to make sure that your sign up sources and subscriber lifecycle automations are in place. You want to make sure that your sign up forms are secured with some form of CAPTCHA to protect against spam bots adding addresses that could hurt your reputation. You want to make sure that your opt in policies on your forms are very clear and direct, and even as explicit as possible on what type of content being sent, so that you are getting the most ideal and engaged subscribers added to your list. And as I mentioned, you want to make sure that your subscriber lifecycle automations are covering you from the first hello to the last goodbye, and creating a very personalized engagement experience for your subscribers, rather than waiting and bulk sending, re-engagement campaigns when half the audience is well good and gone. So these are definitely important to get on the front end. From there, you're going to want to get into maintaining a relevant and compelling content strategy, whether it's with your bulk promotional content, making sure it's intentional, and personalizing, even like call to actions where possible, to building more and more content that is more trigger based off of, say, tracked activity when a subscriber is on your website and they're viewing something or whatnot, creating more and more personalized channels of communication definitely bridge the gap easier for conversion than just bulk promotional sending on its own. And then another key piece of relevant email content is building rapport with your customers through value add, non promotional content. So you don't want to blanket opt in them into it, but give them that option to see you as that industry expert that you are, to find helpfulness and kindness and understanding from your organization, to help keep you top of mind as their solution that they need. And at the very end of it all, you want to make sure that you're practicing good list hygiene. You're segmenting your audiences down wherever possible, to create the most targeted content scenarios whenever you can. Really, I know sometimes you have to send those bulk emails, but even in such situations, sometimes slimming down one or two of them to the most recently engaged with some content that is honoring them in their more recent engagement levels, that is some of the ways that you can boost your deliverability, earn trust with your subscribers, and maintain visibility. And then from there, for those that refuse to re-engage, you do want an automation that attempts to re-engage, but you also want to make sure you have automation set up to sunset those subscribers when they just get too long, where they are just not engaging. That I know that that's a very hard pill to swallow, but it is an industry known fact that a lot of providers, blacklists, mailbox providers themselves, like to utilize things called recycled spam traps, where they use old mailboxes that stopped being used anymore and converted them into spam traps for people who are continuing to send to these unengaged addresses. And that is why more and more you're hearing this language of remove old and unengaged subscribers. I give the advice of anything that has a lot not engaged in over a year needs to stop being sent to, because that is really when you're starting to get to that point where they could become potential spam traps. So we're about to move into the Q&A. I have to do a quick session on why Ordo, of course, because that is the platform I represent. But I really wanted to focus more on, like, why did I move over? I came over from a very general email sending platform. There was nothing crazy about it outside of just the normal bells and whistles related to email and email segmentation. But I could see regularly, especially with the various ways that email metrics can get skewed, as well as the you know data points and personalization limitations, that there was more data needed than just what's happening directly in email. And I wanted to be a part of a platform like that. And when I was introduced to Ordo, and I was approached by them, I realized how great they are. Some of the things that stood out to me was how powerful and yet simple the platform was. It was very intuitive. It was very easy for me to understand that what I wanted could be done right there. Um, but also, it had the data access that I knew the future of email required. It has the ability to not only integrate so many data points and become the hub, not only to build easy reporting and dashboards around, but you could also build automations, not just that send email or send SMS, which we can do, but also you can build automations that process data points and create new data points. You can create update fields and trigger, alerts and do different things that go beyond just a simple triggered email. And I knew that that was the future that was needed, especially when you want to build dynamic content. And I could see very easily that the marketing potential could be reached when using such a platform. And that's why I was a huge fan to come over and do the deliverability, which it's been such a good journey. I'm, 2.5 years into it, and the platform just keeps growing, and I love being a part of it. So,
Oh my goodness. Do you need a drink?
yeah.
I mean, some water. We actually could have played a drinking game here. Every time you say deliverability, it's like drink.
Are you not impressed with me never, hardly ever stumbling over that word? It's so you.
Amazing. No, you're
It's such a
amazing.
weird tongue twister.
It's a hard one. Deliverability. Travis, you're amazing. I learned so much during that presentation. So thank you
Thank you.
so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And we have a lot of questions, so we're going to get right into them. And friends, if you have questions and want to pop them into the Q&A tab, we will try to get to as many as we can. If you don't have questions, take a look in there and upvote ones that you want Travis to answer. And again, we will get to as many of those as we can. All right. So to jump right into it, Ryan is asking, Travis, how do you recommend running a resubscribe campaign? He says specifically, we do paid annual memberships, and we'd love to offer paid members who opted out years ago a chance to opt back in. So, do you have any advice for him?
To be honest, that is, basically you're asking how I know that you're unintentionally, but you're asking how do I, go against their desired consent policy in order to reach them again. That's a
Mm,
very hard one. At the end of the day, I have to still say that that is going to be considered unsolicited. You can attempt to do it. That would be something that I would, at most, if you're desperate and your organization making you do it, you can test it with more uh
mhm.
recently engaged people like that. But at the end of the day, sadly, it is going to be considered unsolicited, and it could be dangerous to your overall email health trying to reach that audience.
Right. Okay. Great. Ryan, if you need more clarification, feel free to ask away. Alana is wondering, kind of a basic question, but I think an important one because I've heard both sides of this conversation. Emojis and subject lines, are they heck yes or are they heck no?
If they work for your audience, yes. I mean, that's it. They
Hmm.
they don't necessarily decide whether you're going to reach the inbox or not. You just need to know, using. I've seen where people use too many emojis where they're just using like six, and I've seen them still like in the subject line. You've got limited space already. It's more
Yeah.
important that you get that interest in the message previewed to them, but having emojis in your subject line in just something a very organic way is still a yay. It's not necessarily a differentiator anymore. It is very common, but it's
Yeah.
still really good. If that's what your brand and your voice does, I say go for it.
Yeah, I've also seen like Morning Brew, for example, they use it the same emoji, so that's part of their branding
Very
strategy,
smart.
just to
Yeah.
stand out in the inbox. Yeah. All right. Alana again is also asking, how do you ensure that all email clients render your email most accurately? She said she's run into issues where she custom codes an autoresponder, and Outlook and Gmail are just like battling to
Oh
the
my
death.
goodness. You can't, but you
Mm,
can, you're doing your best. The thing is that we have to remember is this is one of the things that when I talked about email is not dying because it is something so unique. I mean, it truly is like, each mailbox provider has built their system from the ground up. They
mhm,
render code differently. And, to be honest, Microsoft is more than likely going to be a headache, while, Gmail tends to follow more common patterns. And so I would just advise you to focus on what's a priority and what is generally being experienced. If there are outliers, don't work yourself into a frenzy. You can't control that.
mhm,
Just try to simplify, focus on using like very basic if you need to. If you really want to create that consistency, you can try to be more basic. There are programs like Litmus. I know that try to help show you what the renderings look like, and you can work with
mhm.
that, but it's not foolproof. You can never guarantee it, sadly.
Okay, cool. Ellen is wondering if your company has been sending more emails due to low engagement rates. You talked about that a little bit.
Mhm.
Is there a point at which backing off and focusing on a more engaged audience won't fix it?
That's a great question. In my experience, no,
Mm,
but uh, well, I guess there is a yes. And in email, there's deliverability. There's a joke of it depends. Everything is it depends.
yeah.
There's a really, really bad scenario where you refuse to do best practices with your audience. Yeah, you're not gonna if you're just continuing to do bad things while backing off a little bit, but still not
Hmm.
doing good things, you can have that problem. But every other sender that follows opt-in best practices, that adjusts their make sure that their sign-up flow is
Hmm.
consent and secure with CAPTCHA, when they back down, they see the results that they're looking for. Sometimes with certain providers like Microsoft, if you're getting the bounce backs because you're blocked, yeah, I'll reach out to them, but they do still require you to change your practices, and you will see changes eventually. Sometimes you just have to roll it back even further. A lot of times I start with focusing on 90-day engagers, anyone who's
Mm,
opened in the last 90 days. But I have had experiences, especially that one that I mentioned where the brand A went to brand B and they ruined their reputation on the new domain. We had
yeah.
to go down to 30-day signups or engaged. I made sure that
Wow.
their welcome flow was very pristine and that it was very engaging. And but the key there is if you are in the middle of that and you're still struggling to see the results, there is a there is a secret. It's called the reply to campaign. You do
Mhm.
a reply to. Reply to is a very strong positive signal. You've got to be ready to handle the replies. And the one group did it with like a free coffee giveaway for some feedback on their email, and
Mhm.
by just send a reply. But that did it. That got us over the hurdle and got them to where they needed to be. And so
Mm.
you just got to gauge things and see if you need to go slimmer and slimmer, and then maybe even bring out the big guns with the reply to.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I with my own email list, I track this metric that I call OWBR or OBER, which is open to write back rate. How many people are opening and literally writing back to me, which is a much more clunky way. But yes, it works for me. It's a clunkier way to say reply to,
No,
but
that's
doing that
smart.
consistently over time, I just find really does help keep my
Yeah.
my deliverability rate up,
Mhm.
and engagement too. Okay, David is wondering, is there any way to avoid fluctuations in sender reputation for a sender with infrequent send amounts and long tail engagement?
That is a fantastic and
Mm,
terrible situation to have to deal with. It's a fantastic question and terrible situation. Um, so in those situations, I really encourage those senders to work. The most crucial thing you could do then is to find some way to contact your audience base at least once, if not twice a month. I know that that's a
mm,
struggle. Some companies, if you make O-rings for plumbing and like that's all you do, like who wants to receive a newsletter from an O-ring factory, but if you have to have email comms and you get a really big audience, the keys to being able to continue to reach the inbox, even though there's a very long gap between when interest is current, is
mhm,
you try to find a way to send more frequently. If you
yeah,
can't do that, then when it's time to do those big sends, you have to ramp it up. If it's been more than 30 days since you've done a large send, you need to ramp it up. You need to start as if you're essentially rebuilding reputation. But if you
mhm.
ramp it up over several days and you have done a thorough list cleaning, you should see really fantastic results.
Amazing. Okay, cool. We have a few minutes left, but I want to try to get to as many as we can. David is wondering, is Bimmy setup worth the hassle?
That's another, it depends. It's up to you. Apple, Gmail has just released that they're wanting to kind of bridge that gap by providing a less expensive element that it required,
Mhm,
because there's stuff about logos and getting a certification that is kind of expensive for smaller businesses, especially, and Google especially. I do think it's going to be worth it in the long run if you have
mm,
any sort of significant email volume and
mm.
frequencies.
Right. Okay, cool. Maria is wondering, how would you identify emails which are spam traps and how do you segment those out from the usual sends?
That's great. You can't. They
Yeah.
intentionally hide those. But these deliverability best practices related to segmenting out long-term unengaged, as well as securing sign-up forms with CAPTCHA, because spam bots sometimes do add spam traps, as well as making sure that consent is direct and you're not
Hmm.
getting non-consent contacts somehow.
Hmm.
Those are the ways to protect yourself from getting spam traps or sending to them.
Okay, cool. All right. Sarah is wondering, and I think maybe you have time for one or two more questions. Sarah is wondering, my boss is actively buying lists and making us, ugh, the making piece just makes me feel so sad for you, Sarah, making us send emails to these contacts. I've told him this is a bad idea for many of the reasons you talked about today. What suggestions do you have to get him to back down?
Results. You got to show
Mm,
him the differences. If you can get the metrics from before and save those and get ready to compare and show, especially if you have a platform like Ordo has the ability to show conversions, so show purchases in your sort of data structure and report on that. If you have that
mhm,
ability, if you don't, then I guess spreadsheets can work. You really need to just bring that side by side. I see senders have this problem all the time, and the execs get to choose. That's the bottom line. But if you
mm,
have the results and
yeah.
you can show them, that often works eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Or, get Travis to come in and
Yeah, hire me to come in and
lay it down. All right. Question from Alana. What is a warming service?
there are worming services out there. Basically, what they do, they're really meant for like salespeople who are trying to cold call people through email.
Mm,
And it's just a service that fakes engagement. They have a bunch of seed lists of addresses that are theirs that are fake. They have you send to them from your domain, and then they give all these positive engagements, and then they have them at Google and Yahoo and all of them, and they
mhm,
fake the data that gets you warm. But that only works so long. You are going to be those. Their algorithms know about them now, and they're
mhm.
getting tighter and tighter. And so those services are definitely not working, and they're not ideal. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Okay. All right. I know we're right at time, but I want to ask one more question and then we're just going to shut it down if that's okay with you. Um, Question, does the batch count relate to monthly newsletters or not?
Oh, so bringing down into batches.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal. If you are sending following these best practices, you can I've seen senders do millions at once with no
Mm,
issue. Morning
okay.
Brew, different ones like that. Wall Street Journal, I've seen that. So the batch count really is unnecessary and it's more work
Right.
for you.
Okay, cool. All right, I lied. One more just because I want to know the answer to this. Dominique is wondering, is there ever a strong business case to purchase a list?
The truth
Ever.
is, yeah, that's the
Ever.
thing. Like, I mean, here's the deal. I am on the side of stopping spam.
Yeah.
Purchase list is unsolicited, it's spam. Here's the truth about unsolicited. The first unsolicited email ever sent, you can look it up, made thousands, if not millions of dollars. Okay,
Yeah.
it works, but it has to be stopped because it causes. It's like making like 100, giving 100 people a headache just to get like one person to look at you.
Mm,
It's like
yeah.
that is it's unethical in a way, and I know that there's that stuff still kind of happens, and there is a business side of that, but there are going to be consequences regardless of what your business and I hope that your org structure can take that into account when trying to make that
Mhm.
decision for sure.
All right. Gosh, we have more unanswered questions. We just don't have time to get to them today. So if we have not gotten to your question, my sincere apologies. You have Travis's contact info that he shared with all of you, so I'm sure he would love to connect with any of you. Travis, you're awesome. Thank you so much for your time and energy today. You got through a lot of very detailed information, so thank you so much, and thank you, of course, to Ortto for sponsoring today's presentation. Friends in the audience, we absolutely value your feedback. We need to know what you thought. So on your screen right now, covering up our faces, you're going to see a link that has popped up. It'll take you right to a survey that'll allow you to share your thoughts on this session and to say how fabulous Travis was not leading the survey. But if you wanted to do that, that would be great. So thanks you so much to everyone for joining us today, and we will see you at our next Marketing Profs event. Thank you so much.
Thank you.